My name is Camille. I'm 36, and I've been with Daniel for almost 12 years. Saying that number out loud makes my stomach tighten. 12 years sounds like something solid, dependable. Like a tree with roots so deep, it would take a hurricane to move it. But the truth? We were already rotting from the inside long before that night. I haven't told anyone what happened. Not my sister, not my best friend, not even my therapist. But it's been sitting on my chest like a lead weight every morning when I open my eyes and see him beside me. I think the worst part isn't what he did, it's that I didn't see it coming. Or maybe I did, and I was just too afraid to admit it. There was a time when Daniel made me feel like the center of everything. When we were 26 and stupid in love, he'd pull me into him like he couldn't get close enough. He used to say he could feel my heartbeat in his bones. I remember the way his hands would slide under my shirt while we watched old movies, like he wasn't even watching the screen, just me. We used to dance in the kitchen to Otis Redding while pasta boiled over on the stove. We'd kiss like it meant something every single time. Sex wasn't always fireworks, but it was ours, playful, hungry, full of little whispered jokes that made us laugh into each other's mouths. Somewhere along the way, that quiet spark turned into something colder. I can't tell you the exact day it happened. It wasn't one thing. It was thousands of little things. The way his hand would fall heavy on my hip at night, not gentle, just habitual. The way he kissed me on the forehead instead of the mouth before work. How his texts got shorter. How mine got longer. He still called me babe. Still asked how my day was. But it was different. Like he was reading off a script he'd memorized a decade ago and hadn't bothered to rewrite since. I tried. God, I tried. I bought new lingerie once, not because I thought it would fix anything, but because I wanted to feel like I still had something to offer. I remember walking into the bedroom wearing it, and he looked up from his phone and said, "That's new, huh?" Not a smile. Not a touch. Just a comment, like I'd changed the curtains. And I know it sounds petty, maybe even desperate, but when you're starved for affection, even crumbs start to look like a feast. We'd cuddle sometimes. His arm would wrap around me, but his hand would stay still, cold on my shoulder. I'd lie there, eyes wide open, wondering if I should move closer or farther away. The night I knew something had shifted, it was a Wednesday. Ordinary in every way. I made roasted chicken, and we sat on opposite sides of the couch like we always did. He was scrolling through his phone, and I reached out and rested my feet in his lap like I used to. He didn't even look up. Just adjusted them like a cushion and kept scrolling. I laughed. Light, trying to make a joke of it. I said, "Hey, remember when you used to actually like touching me?" He gave me this sideways glance and said, "Camille, I'm tired. Don't start. Don't start." That's when I realized, I'd stopped being someone he wanted to hold. I'd become something he endured. It wasn't dramatic. No yelling. No slammed doors. Just a quiet kind of heartbreak that sinks in when you realize you're reaching out to someone who doesn't even notice anymore. And maybe that's why what happened later hit me so hard. Because when he crossed that line, when he stepped outside what we promised each other, it wasn't just betrayal. It was confirmation. Confirmation that I hadn't been imagining it. That I really had been slowly, silently losing him, long before he ever touched someone else. And the worst part? I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. Not then. Daniel is a firefighter. One of those men who grew up being taught that action speaks louder than words. He saves lives, carries children out of smoke-filled rooms, and volunteers for the overnight shifts because, in his mind, providing is how you prove you love someone. And maybe for a while, I found that admirable. Maybe even romantic. There was something deeply comforting about being with someone whose world revolved around service, protection. He would come home smelling like ash and adrenaline, and I'd be waiting with dinner and stories from my quiet office job in a nonprofit. We balanced each other, his fire, my calm. Or so I thought. What no one tells you is that being with someone like Daniel means constantly being the second emergency in his life. The week after that Wednesday, the night of the chicken and the cold touch, I tried again. He'd just gotten back from a 36-hour shift. I knew he'd be exhausted, but I had this idea in my head that maybe if I showed him softness, he'd show it back. I'd lit candles. Bought his favorite Thai takeout. Wore that old oversized t-shirt he once said made me look dangerously cozy. He walked in, dropped his gear by the door, and barely looked at me before saying, "You didn't have to do all this." "I know," I said, smiling, swallowing the little sting. "I wanted to." He kissed me on the temple, quick, automatic, and slumped onto the couch. I handed him a plate, sat down next to him, and we ate in near silence while the TV murmured in the background. At one point, I slid my hand under his shirt, just lightly touching his stomach like I used to. He looked down, put his plate on the coffee table, and turned toward me. "You want to?" he asked, his voice low. I hesitated. I hated that I had to think about it, that my body didn't immediately leap toward his. But something had shifted. I didn't want sex to feel like an answer to silence. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe I just wanted to be close." His hand was already on my thigh. "Isn't this how we get close?" And there it was. The whole goddamn problem in one sentence. "I need you to talk to me, Daniel," I said, softer than I felt. "Not just touch me." He pulled back slightly, the way you would from a stove you didn't know was hot. "What do you want me to say, Camille?" "I'm here. I came home. I'm not out getting drunk or screwing around," my breath caught. "Why would you even say that?" I asked. He blinked. "I didn't mean, Jesus, Camille. I'm just saying I'm doing my best." But his best looked like silence and sex. Like duty without desire. And I was tired of being grateful for crumbs. "I feel like I'm in a relationship with your body but not your heart," I said. He laughed. A short, bitter sound. "And I feel like no matter what I do, it's never enough for you anymore." That was the end of that night. No resolution. Just two people sitting too far apart on the couch, each convinced the other didn't get it. The next few days were worse, not loud, just numb. He brought me coffee one morning like he always did, placed it beside my laptop with a tired smile. I thanked him, but I didn't touch his hand when I said it. He kissed my shoulder before leaving for another shift. I let him. But I didn't kiss back. We were performing love instead of living it. A well-rehearsed dance we both knew but no longer felt. And I kept wondering, if he thinks love is showing up, and I think love is being seen, who's right? Or maybe the real question was, how long could we keep missing each other before one of us reached for something, or someone else? I started dreading weekends. The irony wasn't lost on me, most people live for them. But weekends meant more time with Daniel, more space for silence to echo, for well-meaning gestures to feel like obligations. One Saturday morning, he brought me breakfast in bed. Scrambled eggs, burnt toast, and coffee the exact way I liked it. He placed the tray on my lap and kissed the top of my head. "Thought you deserved a slow morning," he said, smiling that crooked smile that used to make my knees ache. I smiled back. Or tried to. "Thanks," I said, keeping my voice warm, even though I was already bracing myself. He climbed into bed beside me and pulled the covers over both of us. His hand slid over my thigh, gentle, familiar. I didn't move, but inside, my stomach twisted. Not in fear. In confusion. I wanted to want this. I really did. His lips found my shoulder, then my neck. "You smell good," he whispered. I didn't. I hadn't even showered yet. But compliments had become currency between us, like he was trying to buy something he didn't know how to ask for anymore. I reached for a piece of toast and bit it, hoping it would buy me time. He moved closer, and his hand cupped my breast through the t-shirt. I froze. Not dramatically. Just enough. Just slightly. Just that tiny, imperceptible pause women know how to make, when they don't want to hurt someone's feelings but can't pretend they're there either. He didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he didn't want to. "You okay?" he asked, kissing my jaw. I nodded. "Just tired." He pulled back a little. "You've been tired a lot lately." "I've been thinking a lot." He sighed. "Not angry, just tired, too. Tired of not knowing how to reach me." "Camille, I'm trying. But I feel like I touch you and you flinch. I kiss you and it's like kissing a wall." That stung. Because it was true. And not true. "It's not you," I said, even though it was him, at least a version of him. The version that didn't see me. That didn't hear me when I told him I felt alone, even with his body beside mine. I feel like we're on different wavelengths," I said. "Like we're reaching for each other, but it's not landing." He leaned back against the headboard, running a hand through his hair. "Then tell me what to do, Cam. Give me a list, a script, a goddamn diagram. Because I'm touching you, I'm showing up, I'm doing the things I thought meant love." I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Because that's what this had become, me shrinking my feelings so his wouldn't explode. I put the tray on the nightstand and climbed out of bed. "I need to shower," I mumbled. As I closed the bathroom door behind me, I leaned against it and took a long breath. I used to love the way his hand would brush the small of my back when I passed him in the kitchen. Now it felt like a reminder, "I'm still here, why aren't you responding?" He was still here. And I was still slipping away. Not because I wanted to. But because every time he reached for my body without reaching for me, it felt like I was vanishing just a little more. It happened during dinner. Not some dramatic moment in public or a screaming match in the middle of the night. Just grilled salmon and a glass of wine on a Thursday. I'd been quiet all evening, half listening as Daniel talked about the new guy at the station who nearly torched a training drill. I nodded, laughed where appropriate, but my heart was elsewhere. Floating above the table. Watching us like a stranger. When he reached across the table to take my hand, I almost didn't notice. His thumb brushed over my knuckles like muscle memory. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back, either. "I was thinking," he said, with that careful tone men use when they think they're offering a solution, "maybe we should get away for the weekend. Just us. No work. No distractions. Just hit reset." A perfectly reasonable idea. And I should have said yes. Or at least thank you. But instead, my chest tightened, and I just blurted it, ugly, raw. "Do you really think a weekend is going to fix this?" He blinked, still holding my hand. "I think it could help." "Help what, exactly?" My voice was rising now, but I couldn't stop. "Help me forget that we haven't really touched each other in months. That when we kiss, I feel like I'm kissing someone who's already halfway gone." He let go of my hand slowly. "Camille, no, I'm serious," I said, tears already welling up, traitorous and hot. "You think booking a cabin with a hot tub is going to make me forget how lonely I feel in the same goddamn room as you?" He sat back, arms folded. "Where is this coming from?" That question, the where, it made something in me snap. Where? Where? I laughed, bitter and breathless. "From the hundreds of nights you've rolled over and gone to sleep without saying goodnight. From the way you touch me like I'm a pillow you forgot to move. From how I begged you, Daniel, to actually talk to me, and you acted like I was asking for a moon landing." His jaw clenched. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just sat there, breathing hard through his nose. "You know what this sounds like," he finally said. "It sounds like you've already decided I'm the bad guy. No matter what I do, no matter how I try to love you, you've made up your mind that it's not enough." I stood up. My chair scraped too loud against the floor. "It's not about being the bad guy. It's about the fact that I don't feel seen. I don't feel safe. Not emotionally. Not anymore." He stared at me. Something flickered behind his eyes, anger, maybe. Or fear. Then he said it. "Then why are you still here?" And that was the knife. Because I didn't have a good answer. I left the table without another word, walked into the bathroom, and shut the door. I didn't cry right away. I just stood there, palms braced against the sink, staring at myself in the mirror. Who even was I anymore? This exhausted woman with red eyes and a tight jaw, trying to scrape something out of a relationship that had long stopped nourishing her. I sat on the edge of the tub, finally letting the tears come. Guilt swirled in fast, how I'd ruined a peaceful dinner, how I'd lashed out instead of opening up, how I kept punishing him for not knowing a language I never really taught him. And shame. Shame that I couldn't seem to find my way back to him, even though part of me still wanted to. Shame that even when he tried, breakfast in bed, weekend plans, a gentle hand on my thigh, I recoiled. But most of all, confusion. Because if I was so unhappy, why was I still waiting? Still hoping? Still believing that what we had could be rescued? I remembered the title of a book I once saw, "The Body Keeps the Score." And I realized, so does the heart. It remembers every unmet need. Every moment you pretended you were okay when you weren't. And mine? Mine was starting to keep count. The days that followed were quieter than any fight we'd ever had. Daniel stopped reaching for me. He still brought me coffee in the morning, still folded my laundry, still asked if I needed anything when he ran to the store, but his voice was thinner, like it was passing through glass. He wasn't angry. Just careful. And that carefulness hurt more than anything he could have shouted. We moved around each other like strangers in a shared hotel room. Sleeping in the same bed, yes, but angled away from each other. He stopped kissing my shoulder goodnight. I stopped pretending I wasn't waiting for it. I missed him. God, I missed him. But every time I thought about apologizing, or even just reaching out, I remembered that look on his face the night I exploded, that stunned, exhausted look of someone who'd finally realized love might not be enough. He'd been trying, in his way. I could see that now. He'd tried with touch because that's what made sense to him. That's how he was wired: action, doing, fixing. He wasn't good at naming his feelings, but I could feel them hanging off him like heavy clothes after a storm. Sometimes I caught him staring at me when he thought I wasn't looking. Not with blame. Just a kind of quiet ache. Like he didn't know how we got here either. And that broke me. One night, I found his hoodie on the back of a chair and pulled it over my head like it might explain something. It smelled like him, faintly smoky, earthy, warm. And I sat on the edge of the bed and cried into the sleeve like I was trying to breathe him back in. I wanted to ask him if he was lonely. If he missed me, too. But what if he didn't? What if I was the one who pulled away so far he stopped reaching? I kept thinking back to a moment, months ago, when I came home from work crying over something stupid, a donor meeting gone wrong, I think. I hadn't even made it through the door before Daniel pulled me in, wrapped both arms around me, and whispered, "You don't have to say anything. I've got you." And he did. That night, he held me until I fell asleep. I don't know where that version of us went. Or maybe I do, and I just don't want to admit it. The truth? I've spent so long focused on what I wasn't getting from him that I stopped offering anything back. I let myself believe that his failure to meet me emotionally meant I had permission to meet him with silence. I stopped listening because I felt unheard. Stopped trying because I felt unloved. But what if he felt just as abandoned as I did? What if both of us were just holding our breath, waiting for the other to move first? That night, I stood in the kitchen watching him do the dishes. His shoulders slumped, his jaw tight. He looked older somehow. Sadder. I wanted to say something, I miss you, or I'm sorry, or even do you still want this? But I didn't. Instead, I walked into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at my phone like it might tell me what to do. Try again? Or walk away? I didn't know yet. But I knew one thing: if one more moment passed in silence, we might never find our way back. And I wasn't sure I could live with that. It was raining the night it happened. The kind of soft, cold drizzle that makes the world feel quieter than it really is. Daniel came home late, his hair damp, his jacket dripping on the floor. I was sitting on the couch, legs pulled to my chest, watching a show I wasn't following. He didn't look at me right away. Just toed off his boots and dropped his keys into the bowl like always. That sound, the clink of keys, used to mean safety. Now it sounded like routine. When he finally looked at me, there was something different in his eyes. Not anger. Not even sadness. Resignation. I need to tell you something, he said, his voice hoarse. I sat up straighter. Okay. He stood there for a second like he was bracing for impact. The night you had that work retreat a few weeks ago, I went out. With a few guys from the station. We ended up at a bar. I had too much to drink. He paused. I kissed someone. I blinked. Just once, he said. Just for a second. Nothing happened after. He stopped it. He went home alone. But the line had been crossed. And I wasn't ready. Not ready to forgive. Not ready to hate him. Not ready to see him as a man capable of that, even though I'd spent months pushing him so far away he probably thought I wouldn't notice if he disappeared. He sat down on the edge of the armchair, head in his hands. I didn't mean to. I didn't plan it. I felt invisible. And when she looked at me like I mattered, I didn't say no fast enough. I didn't speak. Not yet. Because I knew that feeling too well, being seen after months of invisibility. And that's what made it worse. I'm not saying this for pity, he said quietly. I just couldn't keep pretending like everything was okay. I crossed a line. You deserve to know. The rain tapped softly against the windows. My throat felt too tight to speak. But I stood up. Walked over to where he sat. And slowly, without thinking, I knelt in front of him. He looked up, startled. Tears welled in his eyes. I placed my hand over his. Not forgiveness. Not absolution. Just a shared ache. We broke long before that kiss, I whispered. But it still broke me more. He didn't try to defend himself. He just nodded, quietly. Later that night, he slept on the couch. I offered. He didn't argue. Before turning out the light, I walked over and pulled the blanket up over his chest. He looked up at me like he wanted to say something, but I just leaned down and kissed his forehead. Not like a lover. Like a goodbye we weren't ready to say out loud. We hadn't decided anything yet. But something had ended. And we both felt it in the silence. You know what no one tells you about love? That it can disappear quietly. Not in screams or slammed doors, but in soft, aching silences. In nights you don't kiss goodnight. In mornings you forget to ask how they slept. My name's Camille. I'm 34. And I thought I knew how to love someone. I thought if I stayed, if I kept showing up, making dinner, doing laundry, listening to stories about coworkers I'd never meet, I was doing the work. But love isn't just showing up. It's how you show up. It's why you show up. When Daniel kissed that girl, it shattered something. Not just the trust, but the illusion. The one where I thought I had time to fix this. The one where I believed we were just in a rough patch. He crossed a line that night. But the truth is, I was already gone long before he did. I just hadn't admitted it out loud. We tell ourselves that cheating is always black and white. That there's a clear villain. But I don't see him that way, not anymore. I see a man who was drowning in silence, just like I was. A man who tried to love me in the only language he knew, and when that stopped working, he panicked. We both did. And you know what's the hardest to admit? That I stopped trying before he did. Not because I didn't love him, but because I didn't feel safe being vulnerable anymore. Desire needs air, it needs tenderness and curiosity. We were surviving, not connecting. Touching, but not feeling. And eventually, even the most well-meaning love will suffocate under that kind of weight. So, where did that leave us? After the night he told me the truth, we tried to talk, really talk, for the first time in what felt like years. We cried. We sat in long pauses. We admitted things we probably should have said a year ago. But not every conversation is a cure. Some are just eulogies. We decided to take space. Not in that dramatic, we need a break kind of way, but in the quiet kind, where we just stopped making future plans and started living as if we already weren't each other's home. And honestly, that kind of grief is worse than heartbreak. It's like mourning a person who's still alive. A version of love that no longer fits the shape of your needs. So here I am. Months later. Living alone in a tiny apartment 2 neighborhoods away from the life I used to have. I've started painting again, something I'd stopped doing because it felt selfish. Turns out, neglecting your joy isn't noble. It's how people vanish from themselves. I still think about Daniel. Every time it rains. Every time someone brings me a coffee without asking how I take it. And sometimes, I miss him so much I forget why we left. But then I remember, love doesn't survive on memories. It needs breath. Movement. Truth. And if you can't say, I'm not okay, or, I feel unseen, or even, please don't touch me right now, I just need you to hold my heart instead of my body, then what you have might be routine. Comfort. Familiarity. But it isn't intimacy. What I've learned is this: desire doesn't die because someone stops touching you. It dies because you stop feeling understood. And it comes back, slowly, tenderly, when you start understanding yourself again. So, no, we didn't make it. And maybe we never could have. But I don't regret loving him. Because love, even when it ends, teaches you who you are. And I'm still learning. But now, I'm finally listening. To myself. And that's a beginning I was finally ready for.